Daphne Clifton. Thanks so much for joining this webinar. To introduce myself briefly, I started my career with a short spell in the Navy and then spent over 20 years in media sales and marketing, managing teams, and latterly as Senior Vice President of Sales. For the past 10 years, I've been running my own business, coaching and training managers to achieve theirs and their team's full potential. One of the key things people ask me to coach them around is difficult conversations. The classic example is someone who smells. What on earth do you say to them? And there are countless other examples of difficult conversations. I expect you've got one on the tip of your tongue right now. Well, the purpose of today's webinar is to help you handle difficult conversations. I'll go through some basic facts, give you a couple of tools to take away and apply to your own situations. And I have some success stories from clients to share with you. Feel free to make notes, but you can email me at daphne@cliftonconsulting.com for a copy of the slides. So let's start with why it's important to have difficult conversations. What is the most difficult conversation you've had to deal with? Could be with a member of your team, someone else's team, or your boss. Don't forget, you may even have difficult conversations with a customer, client, supplier, or dare I say it, at home. First and foremost, it's worth checking that you're the right person to be having this conversation. There may be legal implications that you should check out first. For example, when starting a disciplinary, downsizing, or discussing arrangements for compassionate leave. As a manager, it's tempting to ignore difficult conversations. When you do, the risk is that the situation becomes unbearably nasty. It gets worse before it gets better, or the wrong person leaves the business. Team members know who's not pulling their weight, and good ones will leave if bad performers are allowed to get away with it. And more dramatically, this could become an expensive lawsuit if things get out of control. The rewards to having a difficult conversation are even greater. A more engaged team, improved productivity, staff retention, and generally a happier workplace. Let's look at some facts about managing difficult conversations. Fact number 1, people leave their bosses, not their jobs. Gallup conducted some research which shows it's the number one reason people leave. Whatever sized team you're running or part of, it's your responsibility to ensure they are all fully engaged and not jumping ship. You don't need to be worried by that, but do start noticing how you are as a boss. Do you find yourself cancelling internal meetings with team members? Do you email your team instead of speaking to them? How much do you listen? Are your team appraisals up to date? Are you causing the difficult conversation? Fact number 2, you're not on your own. It's tough at the top. Many of you may feel isolated, at times overwhelmed, as if you have to resolve everything. And this can be very stressful for you. So the first thing to do when you're facing a difficult conversation is to find someone to work with you on it. Another manager, someone in HR you trust, your boss. Take yourself out of isolation. Fact 3 is that people don't take hints. It's often the little things that make a big difference. It's a classic, but punctuality is a common problem in most offices. When you send out a round-robin email telling the whole team to smarten up on their time management, what happens? The one person who it's for won't think it's for them, and nothing will change. You will just have annoyed the majority of the team. Fact 4 is a reminder that we are all human. That's why we must treat everyone fairly, but not necessarily the same. And that's the point. People respond differently, and there's no cookie-cutter approach. Learning how individuals in your team work will give you a clue as to how to approach any conversation, including a difficult one. To summarise, our 4 facts are: people leave their bosses, not their jobs. You aren't on your own. People don't take hints. We're all human. Now you've got hold of these, I'll introduce you to some tools that will enable you to tackle those difficult conversations. The first one is called Theme and Cue, and it's one of my favourites because it's so simple. Here's how it works. You set a theme for the conversation and a cue to bring the other person into the conversation. To set the theme, take time to prepare yourself. I recommend these 5 steps. 1. Write the problem down. You need it to be really clear in your mind. Number 2. Determine the outcome. Write down the ideal result of the conversation. Thirdly, think about your meeting location. An open plan office with everyone listening isn't going to work. You may feel better about it, but it won't solve the problem. Fourthly, nip it in the bud is the watchword here. If someone starts being late, don't leave it a month before addressing it. Whatever you do, this isn't an email conversation. You need to have a contingency plan in case the conversation goes really badly and the person you're talking to has no intention of changing behaviour or becomes really defensive. Signpost that it's unsatisfactory and you'll be taking further steps to resolve it. And finally, know your office policies and procedures. Find out what action you can take. This conversation may need to move on to a disciplinary. Taking time to prepare yourself is half the battle. To quickly summarise, you need to do 5 things. Write down the problem, determine the desired outcome, think about where you'll meet, nip it in the bud. Know your policies and procedures. The theme sets the context of what you're saying. For example, the context is that office hours are 9 to 5. The current state is that all but one member arrives on time. The required state is that all team members are at their desks ready to take customer calls at 9 o'clock. Why it must change? We have targets to hit and we need to take all the calls we can promptly. So in essence, although you know what you're going to say, how you say it is equally, if not more, important. Here is how to say it. Assertive, brief, non-judgmental, non-blaming. Assertive just needs to be clear, which is why I suggest you write it down and think about what you're going to say. Brief, so that you will both keep to the point. The purpose of being non-judgmental and non-blaming is to avoid either of you becoming defensive. Having set the theme, the trick now is to open the conversation up to involve the other person. You can do this with one clear, open question that invites a solution or that you can keep revisiting. An open question demands more than a yes or no answer. Here are some examples. Who can help you with this? How can you change this? Why is 9 o'clock difficult? What can I do to help you? When do you want to start this? Where will you go for information? You've thought about the theme and set up the cue. You then have your conversation in a quiet office or meeting room and see where it leads. Listen to what is being said. Ask more open questions. Keep them engaged in order to solve the problem. So you need to have this difficult conversation because the reward is greater than the risk of avoiding it. I've given you one of the most common examples in an office. You can apply this to any situation. For example, poor performance, dress code, personal hygiene. Use theme and cue because it's simple and effective. This second tool offers an excellent way to protect your personal boundaries. My coach taught it to me, and I've seen some great results for my clients. We all need to learn how to set our personal boundaries and ensure others respect those boundaries. This is part of our assertiveness and allows shifts in behaviour to take place. From a simple thing like time management to how people speak to you, you can use this tool. Here's how the boundary tool works. There are 4 stages which I'll take you through. They are inform, request, demand, leave. And then I'll give you 3 real examples to bring it alive for you. Firstly, inform the person about what is going on. You're creating a realisation so the person can change their behaviour. The key here is not to make them wrong and put them on the defensive. Then you make a request, politely asking the person to do something differently. 9 times out of 10, one or both of these will work. If not, stage 3 is demand. This tells the person what you will be doing as a result of their behaviour. For example, if your child is behaving badly, you may say, "If you don't do X, I'll stop your pocket money for a week." That's your demand. Stage 4, leave, is carrying out the demand. And of course, you must stop the pocket money. Now let's get into some real success stories that have helped me and my clients. I was at my local railway station one morning. A scruffy-looking man was listening to really loud music about 30 feet away from me on the platform. At 7 o'clock in the morning, that was far too much for me. I walked over to him, smiled, and said, "I don't know if you know, but your music can be heard down the platform." He grudgingly pulled out his headphones and grunted at me. So I repeated what I'd said and asked if he could turn it down a little. He did. I thanked him and walked back to my spot on the platform. Inform and request had worked. Feeling very satisfied with myself, I realised he was walking towards me with his hand in his pocket. Fearing the worst, I stepped back from the yellow line and maintained eye contact politely and trying not to look too scared. Just before reaching me, he pulled his hand out of his pocket, revealing a police warrant card. He explained he was conducting a survey on loud music and feet on seats. I was the first person to challenge him in 3 months. Is there someone in your office whose headphones are loud? Give this a try. Make your life more bearable. And another example is a client of mine who was being bullied by her boss. She'd made a mistake when first working with him. Every time he saw her, he'd say, "Oh, look, here comes Anna, the accountant who can't count." After a year of this, she was a broken woman. I taught her this boundary tool, and she came up with her own inform statement that stopped him ever saying it again. She looked like a new woman when I was coaching her a month later, and I asked her what the sentence was. "Oh, that's easy," she said. When he said it to me the next time, I just said, "Mike, do you know you say that to me every time you see me?" She informed him of his behaviour without making him wrong, and his behaviour changed. She didn't even have to make a request. Use your boundary tool wisely and be sure at the inform level not to make the other person wrong. You're looking for them to realise their behaviour and make a change without having to make your request. The last example really made my day because it made my client money. In an email negotiation, she was being asked to reduce her daily rate by 25%. Using Inform, she reminded the client the value she was offering them. She politely provided them with specific reasons why she was worth that rate. She requested they keep the original rate. And they did! How cool is that? When you use this tool regularly, people will come to know your boundaries and will try to push them less and less. You will develop a protective layer around you that creates a mutual respect. Remember, inform, request, demand, leave. We've covered a lot of ground today, and you have 2 things to try out now: theme and cue, and the boundary tool. Take them away, and while it's still fresh in your mind, plan to use one or both of them in a particular situation that you want to shift. Be intentional with your difficult conversations. Decide what you want the outcome to be. Review afterwards. What went well? What would you do differently next time? And of course, be sure that all you do follows your company policies. These are tools I use with my regular coaching clients in the public and private sectors. They help my clients to become better negotiators, manage their time better, and network more effectively. Many of my clients use these tools to help in their personal lives as well. Working with me is easy. We can meet face-to-face or on the phone. I offer a coaching power hour, which clients find kickstarts the process of achieving their goals. There are 2 other helpful webinars on time management and networking. You can book these and the power hour online at cliftonconsulting.com. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. If you'd like a copy of the slides, please do email me at cliftonconsulting.com. I really hope you found this useful and have some great success tackling your difficult conversations.